This QM module covers residents who improved performance on transfer, locomotion, and walking in the corridor. This measure reports the percentage of short-stay residents who were discharged from the nursing home that gained more independence in transfer, locomotion, and walking during their episodes of care. So this QM is going to look at two different MDSs and compare them. It's going to look at a 5-day or an admission assessment and a valid discharge assessment. So what's going to trigger this QM? But before we get to that, note that this is a QM that we want to trigger. We want the resident to improve from the time they got to our facility until the time they left our facility. So what triggers is that, of course, they have to have a valid discharge assessment and a valid preceding 5-day assessment that we've already covered, and the total performance score of GO11B0B1, which is transfer self-performance, and then 110E1 is locomotion on unit self-performance, and 110D1 walk-in corridor self-performance on the admission, readmission MDS is more than the total performance on the discharge MDS. So on those scores for these three items on the MDS, the more assistance that a resident needs, the higher their score is going to be. So let's say someone's total dependence, that's 4. That's an equal 4, and on the MDS that shows 4. So let's look at these items on the MDS real quick. And of course, we go under MDS, and it's under Section G for residents MDS. And we're going to look at B, D, and E and the self-performance. Now there's two columns. There's self-performance and support. We're only concerned about self-performance. So as you look through here, we get to B, which is transfer, and you notice that there are, the different levels of assistance. Or self-performance, sorry. There's independent supervision, limited assistance, extensive assistance, and total dependence. And if you'll notice, there's a score, or there's a number beside each of those labels. And that number is the score. So for their extensive assistance, their score is 3 for transfer. And then you go up to total dependence. Now there's two other things on here. There's 7, activity occurred only once or twice, and then there's 8, activity did not occur. Now in those two things, they're going to get the same amount of the same score as total dependence. So you won't say that this is 7 and this is 8. These are both 4. So the total dependence of 4, occurring only once or twice is a 4 for a score, and then activity did not occur is a 4. And the same thing for E and D, or D and E. So we're looking at this. Walking corridors supervision, which is a 1. And then a locomotion on unit is a 7. So if we were to add this up, which transfer would be 3, walk-in corridor would be 1, so 3 plus 1 is 4. And then locomotion on unit, which is a 7, which again, remember that's carries the same amount as total dependence, so that's 4. So our total score is going to be 3 plus 1 plus 4. That equals to 8. So on our discharge MDS, that score needs to be less than 8 for us to trigger that resident, for that resident to trigger in this QM. Like I said, this is a QM that we want the resident to trigger. We want them to improve. Another example, on the admission or readmission assessment, transfer is a 3, which is extensive assist. Locomotion on unit is a 2, which is limited assist. Walking corridor is a 3, which is extensive assist. 3 plus 2 plus 3 equals 8. So in order for us this resident to trigger, we have to show improvement. overall improvement in these 3 items and have a lower score. So let's look at the discharge MDS. We got transfer, which is 2, which is limited assist. Locomotion on unit is 1, which is supervision. Walking corridor is 2, which is limited assist. So 2 plus 1 plus 2 equals 5. So the admission readmission MDS total is 8. The discharge MDS total is 5. So that means that the discharge MDS total is less than the admission readmission MDS. This will trigger the QM, which in this quality measure we want to happen. And then under the FYI, 7s and 8s, like I told you earlier, they're given a value of 4. All right, so there's some exclusions with this, which means an exclusion is if a resident has this, they are not, they don't trigger, they don't go into the calculation. So, and if a resident's marked as having a coma or being in a coma, they're excluded. If they have a prognosis of life expectancy is less than 6 months, which means J1400 equals yes. Or if they're under hospice care, is a yes on the admit and readmit MDS. Or the admit readmit has 0 for transferring, locomotion on unit, and walking corridor. All 3 of them have 0s. Then they're exclusion. And if they have an unplanned discharge during this episode, then they are excluded. So getting to the being proactive section. Most of these people are going to be on therapy, so we want to encourage the resident to go to the therapy, participate in therapy as much as possible, which another thing that nurses can do to help with therapy encouragement is, of course, verbal encouragement, but also making sure that the resident's pain's under control. You know, do they need that Tylenol or ibuprofen, or if they had a recent surgery, their tramadol or anything like that, Tylenol number 3. So make sure that their pain's under control so they will feel like doing therapy. Monitoring the dashboard for stop and watch alerts, especially for those that are increased health. And again, monitoring the dashboard for the alerts decline in ADL. This is triggered in any infection type UDA if the nurse states that the residents had a decline in the ADL. Of course, again, keep residents in good health, catch things early, and report changes to the doctor. Of course, we can do that with dashboard monitoring. Review real time to see who's currently triggering. Audit the kiosk documentation to determine if staff are accurately documenting, and if they're not, we need to educate as needed. We can also audit the weekly summary UDAs to determine if staff are accurately recording or documenting locomotion on unit. And then again, educate staff as needed. Monitor the 24-hour report and keyword report for signs of ADL decline. And then we can, again, you know, if a resident needs some more therapy, we can, again, ask for a therapy screen. Now, all of these, especially in the being proactive, you'll see these links in blue, or sometimes it'll be purple. If you click these links, it will take you to instructions on how to perform those actions, which is really good. I mean, you just use this one form and you can return to the table of contents and then go back to the QM you're working on, go to the next one, and of course dashboard, there's real time to see who's currently triggering. But instead of going over this, like I said, the instructions are here, but I'm going to show you in a live environment how this is done. So looking at for the dashboard, monitoring the dashboard for changes in stop and watch alerts, decline in ADLs, and a lot of other changes you can catch on. You can catch those residents having these declines. So let's say we're in PCC. Let's get out of this MDS. Go to clinical and do just hover over clinical and go to dashboard, locate clinical dashboard, clinical alerts. Now you can scroll through here and look at all these alerts, and of course residents are listed if they have any alerts. If there's a plus sign, they have more than one alert. Or you can just come over here and click this icon and see all the alerts, and you can look at the different alerts that a resident's triggering. Of course, y'all do this in morning stand-up, or clinical stand-up, or when you get to when DONs, ADONs get to the facility just to see what's going on. But you can look at these things and catch, some things that are mild but early before something gets out of hand. So we're just scrolling through here looking for any kind of ADL decline or anything, a resident having a trend eating in less than 51%. They're not getting enough calories, they could be tired. So just looking through those things to see if we could see anything. And then you can look at real time. We'll go in real time. Log into this. Get the right password. So we can look at our reports, our keyword report, and our alert or 24-hour report. So if we just go to reports and like our 24-hour report, click that, and we can see all kinds of changes in here, see if there's any potential ADL declines or things that could lead to an ADL decline. Blood pressure being low, that could affect someone falling. Someone falls, then they're going to deteriorate, so you could look at those. O2 sats low. Pain, you can see if people are in pain and what we can do with that. This resident has diarrhea. So different things, just looking at things in here that could, catch your eye so we can then go address it with that resident to make sure that they're not going to have any further decline. Catch things early. That's the key. And then we can also look at the keyword search. This resident had a fall. Of course, these residents are on PT and OT. Just going through here, they got a stage 3 wound ulcer. Just going through, again, there's more pain. So looking at those things to see if there's anything that could lead to a decline. So we can look at kiosk documentation and see if staff are, accurately documenting these things, because the kiosk documentation and weekly summary documentation all goes and feeds the MDS, or that's where the case managers get that information from. So let's look at the follow-up question report in PCC. That's where we can see different items where the staff are documenting under the kiosk. So we got to choose a task. So we're going to select using task library. I'm going to change that to POC daily care task. Remember, we're looking at transferring, walking in corridor, and locomotion on unit. So we're going to look at transferring. You get to kind of, because all of these things, that in the instructions, it shows you how to look at each one of these. So we're going to look at transferring. And remember, we want to do self-performance, so we click that. Now the date, I would suggest doing the last week, because can be a pretty lengthy report. Leave the residence blank because we want to look at everyone, and just run that report. And in this report, it's going to have, the resident's name and then all the entries in the kiosk for this resident. And we can see if the staff are accurately documenting the right amount, especially if you know this resident and you know, like, they're not extensive assist. Or you can go see, well, why were they extensive assist? But you could just go through, or you just, a lot of this, you will just verify that, yep, that's the case. But we need to, if we are seeing discrepancies in how this is, between the resident and what's being documented, we need to address that. Because again, this feeds directly to the MDS. So just go through there, scan through that and see, if it's accurate. And you can do that for the walking corridor too. But for the locomotional unit, you want to look at a different report. And on that report, you want to do the resident response list to look at locomotional unit. Of course, you just want to look at current residents. The date range, again, I would just do the last week. We can sort it by resident's name. The assessment type, we want to choose weekly nursing summary. Then we're going to go to click the magnifying glass to select a question, because what this is going to do is show us all the weekly summaries responses in this time frame to these particular questions. We're going to select mobility. Now you got to run two different reports on this one. So one, we need to see, if they walk, how much assistance is needed. We'd click that and then run it. While that's running, we can come back over here and do under chair and run that one. Now what this one's going to do is going to show you the amount of assistance and then the number of staff. The number of the names of the residents that fall under that. So no assistance was needed for this resident, or oversight and encouragement was needed for this resident, which this is supervision. And then staff needs to physically guide, that's extensive assist. There's no residence for that and no residence for this. So you can just make sure, one, that it's being accurately documented, and two, that weekly summaries are being done. I think that's it. Again, use these tools to learn how to monitor these things and to catch these residents early before they have a decline, so we can make sure that they do trigger this particular QM. So, because again, if they trigger this, that means they improve during their stay, and that's what we want. All right, thank you.